Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is February 1, 2026. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Please subscribe. Today is February 1, and we're doing a salon with these wonderful people called Wide Awake Language. I Tell You No Story. We're celebrating James Joyce's 144th birthday. Well, it's yestermorrow, actually, with these beautiful Finnegans waking up. So the first round robin question is pretty simple. Please tell me your full name and where you're calling from and your replacement word for Finnegans Wake being described as unreadable. That sort of bugs me when people go, it's unreadable. I'm like, give me a break. It's very readable. But we all know that they can sell the book or they can use this in academic settings or in casual, cocktail parties. Oh, it's an unreadable book. So I'll start. My name is Jerry Fielka. I'm from Venice, California. And I would say it's singable. Okay, Sam, what's your replacement word?
If I'm already going to be cheating on this one, I would say endlessly unreadable.
Endlessly unreadable. Now, we like breaking rules, so he did two words, endlessly unreadable. Well, no, I actually just
I kept the unreadable. I added one.
You added an adjective. That's totally valid. Okay, Roy.
Well, I think this is something Margot Norris said in her book, that at first Finnegans Wake was condemned as being unreadable, and then after postmodernism, it was celebrated for being unreadable. So
celebrated. All right. So you guys are using adjectives more. Okay, Talia.
Well, I like it that it's unreadable. Can I keep it? Can I stay with this? Can I stick to this word?
That's totally valid. Keep with it. Okay, Peter.
Well, I think you had said for us to say where we're calling in from. So I'm in.
Oh, yeah. You're. Jesus, somebody's listening. Thank you, Peter.
Yes, I'm in Austin, Texas right now. And the word I would do is ungraspable.
Ungraspable. That's tactility, dude. Very good. Okay, let's backtrack before we go to Catherine. Talia, tell us your full name and where you're calling from.
Talia Abu. I'm calling from Tel Aviv.
From where?
Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Roy.
Roy Benjamin. Nickname is Chip, but I'm calling from the East Village, New York, Manhattan.
And Sam.
Sam Slote. I'm calling from Dublin.
Thank you. And Catherine.
I'm calling from Berkeley, but I just arrived from Cork, so feel like I'm still between two spaces.
And what word would you replace for unreadable?
I would say, it's something to do with play, like ludic, It's a book that you can't just read passively. You can't just, move your eyes over the text and expect to get it. You have to engage with it. You have to play with it. And it's a collaborative process.
But I missed the first word you used. What was it?
Ludic.
Nubic. How do you spell that?
Ludic.
Oh, L-U. How do you spell it?
Sounds erotic. L-U-D-I-C. Like Ludo.
Oh, L-U-B-I-C?
L-U-D-I-C.
Yeah, great. I see you.
Homo ludens.
That's like I see you. That's like on Saturday Night Live. They said when Frank Zappa was on there, we'll be CBSing. We'll be NBCing a lot more of Frank, and I'm not CBSing you. So, I forgot to send the memo out, but we're changing the discussion on the book today from Finnegans Wake to this book. Magazine.
Much more
snappy answers to stupid questions.
Very useful book.
So I've been trying to. If you've never read this book, it's really cheap. You can probably get it free on a PDF. But it is the greatest book.
Can I ask a stupid question about that? No.
And we're celebrating this guy's birthday tomorrow, James Joyce.
Charlie Chaplin.
Being a jokester, what did one mirror say to the other mirror? It's all done with people. So we're going to, as a group, because, you know, we think we're separate people, but indeed we're all one. We're going to take one deep breath in together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And release. Okay, that's called conscious breathing. We're doing that automatically all day. So we're going to be here presently, consciously, trying to do something that I hope we can do together as a group, and that's study tell each other our percepts as opposed to our concepts. Words evoke more than their meaning. A concept is a con job. It's trying to say this is the way something is. That's what academia is, basically. You have a theory, and it's a con job, and it's not bad. Percepts and concepts are both good. But McLuhan, who kind of broke the Finnegans Wake code through his Menippean translation of it, teased his people who read him and his students, that his percepts were concepts. So that's why he's chalked off in the Joyce world and in academia pretty much. And so he was asking us to come up with new questions and new metaphors. And so that's all. I actually read a quote of Joyce's that really intrigued me. He said, "We want to feel literature." So that's back to that tactility thing, whoever said it. Feel literature. Well, how do you feel it? Will you feel the book in your hands? No, literature is basically an eye experience. And we know that reading Finnegans Wake out loud changes the eye experience into the ear experience. And I'm basically getting to another gentleman that I worked with, George Carlin, and we got a flyer in the mail, and it said, "I'm trying to get more control over my spontaneity." So that's sort of what we're doing here. And to keep it in a comical vein, we're going to do one more rewording exercise, and we'll reverse the order. We'll start with you, Catherine. And this is from Mel Brooks's movie from 1967 called The Producers. If you're not aware of it, you should see it. It's very good. And it was rare for any comedy to ever be nominated for an Oscar for Best Screenplay. And that's what it was. And the lead character, Gene Wilder, is named after Mel Brooks's influence in being influenced by Ulysses. His name's Leo Bloom. And here's the line that Gene Wilder says in The Producers: "I want everything I've seen in the movies. I want everything I see in the movies." So what I'm asking you all to do is fill in the blank after I. I want everything I fill in the blank. So I'll start. I want everything I hear and see when I go to Dublin's Sweeney's Finnegans Wake Reading Club. Just to suss it out, it's because they're the only reading club that just reads the Wake for an hour, and they don't try to unpack it and analyze it. After that hour, there's some small talk about what did we just read. But it really is an amazing experience having read it. More the traditional Finnegans Wake Reading Club way is you analyze maybe a page or 2 pages or less. So, Catherine, you're up. I want everything I
want everything I hear in the Wake. So
I good.
hear. So
Yeah.
often, I'm reading it on my own, and there are little whispers that I can't quite catch of meanings. And this is why it's so great, like you're saying, to read it in a group where everyone hears something else, and you really get a much fuller sense of what's happening. It's never going to be complete, but you get the gift of words being put on those echoes that you kind of registered, but not fully consciously. You couldn't quite put into words.
It's really amazing what you said, because what I see is I got a good education, but I know how to mispronunciate really well. And so this is like, I can hear how each person will pronounce a syllable because I'm paying more attention than if I was just casually reading it. So it's all about hearing someone else mispronounce a word that I go, no, I would never pronounce it that way. But that helps me become more aware of that very syllable. So again, I forgot to say, you put these questions into the context you want. You don't have to put it in regards to the wake. So Peter, you're up. I want everything I...
Oh, wow. I'll say I want everything I see that is unjust going on to be punished.
Beautiful. Peter, you got ESP because you know the next question is your topic. Talia, you're up. I want everything I...
You stole my idea.
Well, then that should enable you to up them one up. Man. That's like, okay, now come up with the new one.
Okay, I want everything. Okay, so just it's I'm building on what Peter says. I want everything I know is just to be rectified.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Suss out that word rectified. What does that mean?
Just to make unjust, not unjust.
Like corrected.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Okay, Roy, you're up.
Well, I want to know everything that appears in Fleet. But that means it's extensible. That means it keeps growing.
Yeah. Well, that's fun because I've interviewed that guy who started Fleet twice. If you guys don't know this, he used everything in Roland McHugh for many years, and then he stopped using it, and he dropped some of Roland McHugh out. Mm-hmm. So everybody who was using Fleet go, well, that's made Roland McHugh obsolete. And I goes, not now. But Roy had the liberty to change the wording. Sam, you're up. I want that's all right. You said I want to know. That's fine. There's no rules. Sam, you're up. I want
oh man,
Kitty.
I have my cat here. I don't want anything now.
I don't want anything. Well, that's
let the cat speak. The cat knows.
No, is that your answer? I don't want anything.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's
very zen.
That's a good answer because that again it anticipates somewhere we're going. Yeah. So we're going to go to John Sayles being quoted in the New York Times last Sunday in the book review section. There's a nice picture of him. What an amazing writer, filmmaker. You know, he's focused on labor history and populist resistance. And they said, if you could require the president to read one book, what would it be? And here's his wording. It's really important how he worded it. Finnegans Wake by James Joyce, but he has to read it aloud in front of an audience in one go, no bathroom breaks.
Well, supposedly he's taking bathroom breaks all the time in the middle of press conferences.
And listen, that is a fascist thing to say in a way. I'm going to set up the parameters on how you have to read this book. Dude, we didn't ask you to set up the parameters. We just said, hey, you listen, you read this book. You know, this is the book we want you to read. So, I mean, Peter, you can bring this up and set up the question as you like. What I want people to do is talk about what Philippe Solar wrote. I don't know, Solers, he wrote in his book or in an essay that Finnegans Wake is the most formidable anti-fascist work produced between the two world wars. And you know, I wrote this article called "Can Art Stop War?" and it referenced all about how Finnegans Wake is a manifesto for peace, and that matriarchy is the way to go, and that's the way we went for many years. And so, you know, someone brought up the other day the four are socialism, capitalism, Marxism, and fascism. So, Peter, how do you want to word the word round robin question? What could we ask these beautiful, lovely, great thinkers? Something, I mean, it's evident Joyce had something to say about fascism in the wake, but how can we take it a little farther with a new question or a new metaphor?
Wow. I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I'm just curious because, you know, we have some really prestigious, well-established Joyce scholars here, and the discussion of Joyce's politics or about what was going on in the world when Joyce was most actively writing. It's such a, you know, deep question, and our reading groups very often just become about that, depending on, you know, what's going on in the world at the time we're talking. But you know, so as Joyce is writing Ulysses, the Irish Civil War is happening, and then World War I, and then right before Finnegans Wake, you know, World War II is starting to begin. So I guess I'm just curious, like, what do you think is the importance of, or the benefit of reading and studying Joyce, both his work and his life, now in the context of what we're experiencing?
Yeah, like is the wake a manual for living? That's what you know. George Perec and Oulipo movement as their book, A Life Manual. I says, well, that's what the wake is life manual. So you're basically saying, what can we learn about fighting fascism from the wake in today's world? Is that what you want to ask?
Sure.
Okay, Sam, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, that's you're moving to some really tough questions here, and in terms of the Philippe Sauver's line, I was reminded of the thing that in the late stages of writing Finnegans Wake, Joyce was just he had problems finishing it, and he was getting polite letters from T.S. Eliot, his publisher at Faber and Faber. When do you think you might be done, Mr. Joyce? No pressure. Oh, anytime soon. And this dragged on for a few years, and it finally sends a complete manuscript. Now, when it came to Ulysses being published, it was officially published on his birthday, February 2nd, and the last revisions Joyce made were done on January 31st. But this is only because Sylvia Beach was just extremely devoted to him, and by being published on his birthday, that just meant that 2 copies were ready. Joyce expected that T.S. Eliot and Faber would basically treat him the same as Finnegans Wake. So literally within a week after he's finished it, he's signed off, it's done, he starts with the letters, when's my book coming out? And this goes on for months. And they're saying, well, dude, this can't happen overnight. It's a complicated thing. We've got publishing schedules and so on. And the letters do a good job of showing how difficult Joyce could be and how full of himself. One letter I want to signal is where he goes, I fear war may break out if my book isn't published beforehand. That he somehow felt the publication of his book in due course would prevent the European conflagration. Sadly, T.S. Eliot never quite listened to that, so things went south. Crazy or not, I think that does show that he, at least in some degree, harbored a kind of, say, political ambition around Finnegans Wake. What that is perhaps not the easiest thing to say, and I think to some part, the difficulty of the way, going right back to your first question, would have to be a component of whatever political message is there. That if it were going to be a simple message, he would have said it simply. So something about the complexity of the wake expresses its politics.
It's beautiful, Sam, because I tell you, you're up next, but I just want to interject. That's like when I say to people, oh, I ask them about some political issue, and they go, I'm not a political person. I go, dude, that's a political statement that you just said to me. So Talia, you're up. Thank you.
I just feel like what Sam said, and I wanted to build on that, because fascism is easy. It's a simple worldview. I know it because I live in a fascist state, and fascism means that the world is conveniently divided into good and bad. That I'm good and the others are bad, and it's very easy to fall into that. And so, just the very idea of complexity of having to work in order to understand something, putting an effort in order to do something, as read a book, that in itself is something that may counter the simpleness of fascism.
Yeah, Talia, that's a really good point. And I wanted to go back to reacting to Sam for a second. Is that sounds pretentious? Like people like to chalk Joyce off as being pretentious a little. I'm like, that's not pretentious. He has a vision. He's a visionary artist. And if you study the great art piece in Los Angeles called the Watts Towers, this guy made this sculpture. It's the greatest piece of art on the face of the earth for 30 years. And most people come there and they go, that's an outsider art piece. It's just him adding and adding and adding. And it's like, nope, Simon Rodeo was like James Joyce. It wasn't just Joyce adding, adding, and adding. It was he had a vision. He's a visionary artist. And he had a vision that he could change the world with his book, I believe. And he did, and he will continue to change the world with it. So I think it is a manifesto against fascism and for peace. So Roy, you're up. Any comment?
Well, I know that Joyce watched some of his literary comrades embrace fascism, like Ezra Pound and even Yeats, and to a certain extent even T.S. Eliot, who not a fascist but certainly became an authoritarian. And I don't know. I think the I think presenting the whole political scheme in terms of a family romance, with the brothers ganging up on the father, and but while being sexually attracted to the sister, but the life force being the conduit is the mother. So I always think, what is the Michelet, that about the flowers surviving the collision of civilizations. I think of that as a very anti-fascist thing, that the people in power are going to keep destroying each other, but the beauty of life will still survive through the flowers and long after the empires are in the dust. So.
Who's Michelet again, Roy? Where's that from?
Is it Michelet? I'm not sure if I'm.
No, it's Quinet.
It's Quinet.
Yes,
Quinet, right.
A French historian from the 19th century.
Right.
That although, there's so it's called the Quinet sentence in Finnegan's Wake that appears, I think about 8 times, but with variations.
Variations. Yeah. If I could
Yeah, and
follow up on that. Oh,
I am. You're next, Catherine. But I just want to say, I believe that. And that's an amazing thing, is it's the power of positive thinking. And why do you say stop war when you can say promote peace? So go ahead, Catherine, you're up.
yeah. This idea of, how does Finnegans Wake respond to fascism? This notion of the recurrent flowers, described over and over again in Finnegans Wake as surviving the tempests of history. They themselves change form. The wording changes form subtly. And so this is very anti-monumental. This is all about process, change, variety, some kind of spontaneity, uncontrollability. And so down to the tiniest details, Finnegans Wake is against the choreographed submission of fascism. Susan Sontag wrote about this. This idea of harmony without conflict, unity, untroubled unity. And instead, Finnegans Wake is constantly about subversion, variation, whether willed or unwilled. It's just happening all the time. And that leads to a hybridity, admixture, complexity, which is, speaks much more fully to our everyday experience, our encounters with others, our encounters with ourselves, with language. Order, especially kind of monumental, overwhelming, timeless form, is just really defied by the book. And I think this is why it's so unreadable in the kind of normal sense, because you can't just look at the sentence and say, as Marshall McLuhan was saying, what is its content? It has to be engaged with in an open and maybe generative way. And this is why it's so much fun. It's so much more fun than fascism.
It's a lot more fun to have peace than it is war. But you wonder about that because the history of cinema, this history of cinema is only 130 years old. And to me, it is like Kenneth Anger said, the day films were made was a dark day for humankind. And all cinema has done is hoiked up a military as conflict resolution. And then I have this horrible bias towards violent films. Then I found these DVDs, really highbrow. I think the Getty put them out with all these highbrow authors talking about the history of literature. And they go, the same thing. They go, literature's all based on people chopping each other up. And I'm like, this is horrible. And, is it different? Because we read with our eyes, but we see movies with our, eyes. And, is there a difference? And that's really, Catherine, you brought up a lot of stuff there. And I'm curious, it's like you have ESP because that's the next subject is what we're going to talk about. So beautiful on that. But Peter, you're up. Now you've heard all these great, beautiful people talking about fascism. Like, you're a very kind, like you, when the poet got killed in Minneapolis, you said something at our wake group that really touched me. They go, okay, I'm really moved because they killed they killed one of us. They killed a poet. It's like, well, no, you're pissed when they kill anybody. But it was touching for me to hear you say that and put it in your own sort of close-knit family kind of feeling. But I mean, fascism is a word that gets thrown around a lot because in studying this, democracy came out first, then socialism, then Marxism, and then fascism. So I was going to ask, well, which one of the four came out first? And then I asked AI and it told me really clear. But who knows? How do we know? We weren't born.
What did it tell you clearly?
That that's when each one of those systems started, like of the forces. How do we know that fascism isn't innate in humans? We don't want to believe that.
You think it's in our DNA. Yeah.
Well, is it in our DNA to fight? I mean, that is what I've learned from Maria Gambudis, the archaeologist, and Rianne Eisler, Chalice of the Blade, that most people think we're hardwired to be violent. It's called survival. And she said, no, there was a huge amount of humanity that had no warfare. And so what caused war? What caused humans to develop warfare? And was it, are we hardwired for fascism? I mean, basically, Peter, you can go wherever you want, but I just want to throw that in.
Okay. I guess I'm just thinking about kind of like what Roy was talking about, that when Joyce was writing Finnegans Wake, people in his circle, like Ezra Pound, Wyndham Lewis, were pretty ardent fascists, Hitler supporters, things like that. And so, Joyce had a choice whether to, I guess, agree with them or speak out against them somehow. But the way he operated was, you guys hear me okay? Roy, you might want to mute.
Yeah, Roy, you want to put on mute for a second?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, go ahead, Peter.
So yeah, it seems like when Joyce would address these kind of things, it was always in a very indirect or subtle way, and it was always with like humor and things like that. So that's why you have him kind of attacking Wyndham Lewis in The Wake, but in a very, convoluted Wakean way. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's go around. Okay, Catherine, let's start with you. Are humans, is conflict resolution more innate or more invented?
I'd say it's innate. I think, like the Buddhists say, that we have the seeds of everything in us, of war, of peace, of being nurturing, of being destructive, and that it's really about what we cultivate and what we cultivate together as a society.
Yeah.
And I think that Finnegans Wake is actually surprisingly open to that. Like there are kind of references to atrocities and to genocides in Finnegans Wake that weirdly cast those events within a kind of, the frame of history without a sense of horror. It's sort of disturbing sometimes to read about, say, the Armenian genocide in Finnegans Wake or reference to it, and to see that there's no explicit condemnation, but it's in fact kind of set within this fluid, almost even comic language. And so I think that in some ways gets to what Peter was talking about, this idea of these subtler means of addressing violence. Not wishing it away, not pretending it hasn't happened, acknowledging it, but in a radically non-violent mode. And I guess that, outrage itself can be violent. And that the Finnegans Wake never expresses outrage. I mean, maybe it does. But in my experience, it's, it's sort of more complex, subtle forms like, ridicule or mild amusement or, weird coincidence, like doublings that kind of take away the singular power of any one event.
It's really good. I wanted to inject another great artist that was hanging out with Joyce in Paris and they encountered each other was Marcel Duchamp. And he said, there's no solution because there's no problem. So as soon as you say, well, we're hardwired to fight, which I'm not disputing you, Catherine, but I think maybe we are, but I think we've been brainwashed to believe that we're hardwired to fight is just what Duchamp is saying, and picked up by Alan Watts many years later. If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. So if you acknowledge war as a means to resolve conflict, then all you're doing is empowering war. And you're going to have 130 years of guns and movies. That's all it is. So Peter Sellers, the great opera theater guy, I asked him what caused matriarchy. And he said, a mother holding a baby. So if we would have followed what, matriarchy was and could still be, maybe we wouldn't be so inclined to be warmongers. Go ahead, Sam. Yeah.
I think sort of going back to what you were saying, following from some of the points you had, I wouldn't say we're hardwired to fight, but we're hardwired for something. And that human history has sedimented that into conflict, into any number of sort of regressive bad behaviors, and so that they have a history and have a weight, but that's not necessarily inevitable. This is speculative anthropological work. The Israeli thinker Yuval Harari, it's where I first read it, but he's a great synthesizer. He didn't originate the idea, was that actually the sort of the hunter-gathering phase of humanity was actually pretty cool. That it wasn't threadbare existence. Humans did well. Agriculture was the first sin, or the where things started to go wrong, because of agriculture you have to have territory, and of territory you have to have enforcement of territory, and that leads to violence. And indeed, one of the interesting, non-obscure ways that's been, as it were, recorded within cultural consciousness, the story of Cain and Abel. The tiller of the earth commits the first violent act against his brother. So it's a weird kind of perhaps cultural memory of the trauma of instituting agriculture. And indeed, this is one of the things in Harari's book, was that agricultural existence wasn't a significant benefit over hunter-gathering for thousands of years. It actually was to most people, it was actually regressive in terms of making life more difficult. It did not simplify things. So that was perhaps where things went wrong. Although, to quote Douglas Adams in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that some say that coming out of the trees was the first problem. Others go, no, coming out of the water. That's when that's when things went.
That's really good. If you watch that movie, I swear that movie's the closest thing I ever have seen, or one of the closest things I've ever seen to reading Finnegans Wake out loud with a group of people. Like, this guy.
I think reading that in high school was one of several things that helped put me on the track to reading Joyce.
And to reading the Wake, that's beautiful. Yeah, because Talia's story and how she got to the Wake. Watch my podcast with her. That is a great story. That's for real. I won't tease people and tell them now. I'll let them watch it. But I love that. But here's the main thing you said, Sam, and I do want other people to weigh in on this. Are we hardwired to be violent, to resolve conflict in a violent way? And you said this amazing thing. We're hardwired for something. Well, I usually go, is it in your DNA, or are you hardwired to eat food? And people go, yeah. And then I go, well, what about breatharians? They don't eat. They just live by breathing. It's like, yeah, that sounds like bullshit to me, but someone invented it. So it is, words evoke what we believe. It's all that Wittgenstein and all that stuff. It's like words create what we think we believe. And the word believe, words evoke more in their meaning, has the word lie in the middle of it. So how can we ever really say we're hardwired for anything? And my friend said, no, we invented everything. We invent everything. And that, to me, that sounds bullshitty too. But I think your statement, we're hardwired for something, rather than distinguishing what it is that we're probably hardwired. Go ahead, Peter.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to follow on some of the things that Sam was saying, because this whole thing of hardwired, like, and you're talking about like borders and territories and things like that. Like, animals are hardwired to, like, if they smell another animal's shit, they shit on top of it, to be like, no, this is my territory, And I think so much, especially right now here in America, the violence and things that's going on, it's about the border, right? It's so much about the border. And it's like the border is, ink on a map. It's not actually there on the land. It's something that we claimed, and Texas was part of Mexico 150 years ago. Now it's something that we fight over. But with Finnegans Wake, it's almost like there's like a borderlessness about it, especially because so often he's combining complete opposites, like within one word, he's combining two completely opposite things. So yeah, I'm just thinking about that, like this idea of the border and how, especially with the Wake, obliterates the idea of borders.
Yeah, Catherine's up and then Talia, but one quick thing, Peter, what you did there was you anthropomorphized on animals. We don't know. We don't speak animal language. I think your point was valid. But we don't speak animal language. Their language could be saying, we play. And then so we're like, oh, well, let's say animals play, because and it could be fight. They could be another word. We don't speak it, but we think we can speak animal language, which is fine. That's good. Okay, Catherine, you're up, and then Talia.
I was thinking we could think for a minute about the text of the wake itself when it asks these questions, and this idea of our relation to animals, or what we're made for, what we're hardwired for. And Finnegans Wake actually, in the Mama Festa chapter, brings this up, where let me just read a little passage that deals with these ideas and also makes fun of them at the same time. So this is on page 112, towards the top of the page. Lead, kindly fowl. So this is addressed to Biddy the hen. Lead, kindly fowl. They always did. Ask the ages. What bird has done yesterday, man may do next year. Be it fly, be it molt, be it hatch, be it agreement in the nest. For her, socioscientific sense is sound as a bell, sir. Her volucrene auto-mutativeness, right on normalcy. She knows, she just feels she was kind of born to lay and love eggs. Trust her to propagate the species and whoosh her fluff balls safe through din and danger. Lastly, but mostly, in her genesic field, it is all game and no gammon. She is ladylike in everything she does, and plays the gentleman's part every time. Let us auspice it. Yes, before all this has time to end, the golden age must return with its vengeance. Man will become dirigible. Ague will be rejuvenated. Woman with her ridiculous white burden will breach by one step sublime incubation. The main-wanting human lioness with her dishorned discipular man-ram will lie down together publicly, flank upon fleece. No, assuredly, they are not justified, those gloom-pourers who grouse that letters have never been quite their old selves again, since that weird weekday in bleak Genevieve, yet how palmy date was in Waste Oasis, when to the shock of both, Biddy Doran looked at literature.
Wow, bravo. That was a beautiful reading, and what a passage. So why did you bring that passage up, Catherine?
So I brought it up because it brings up this opposition of male and female, where men are implicitly associated with war and women with nurturing, with, reproduction, and with peace, with establishing, what is it called? Something in the nest, agreement in the nest. Agreement in the nest. And even as it does so, it appeals to the natural world as a model for peace. But even as it does so, it really makes fun of all of those ideas, like by saying that she's ladylike in everything she does and plays the gentleman's part each time. It sort of bends the notion of decorum by, kind of hyperbolically saying she's both ladylike and gentlemanly. And it kind of collapses the ideas so that this is clearly a projection onto Biddy the hen. It's a very hopeful one, this idea of everything being okay again. Man will become dirigible, ague will be rejuvenated, and the golden age will return with its vengeance, which is also kind of funny, because we don't really associate vengeance with the golden age. And it's a kind of deformation of the phrase to return with a vengeance. Things are really coming back 100%, but the golden age will return with a vengeance is, again, kind of troubling our notion of what a golden age is and where that construct comes from. Like, it's an imperial construct of, a beautiful, fertile time in which the world existed purely for us. And that is a kind of appropriative vision. So I would say that, is there any answer here? The only answer is in play. And in a nutshell.
That's really good. Yeah, and so there's a great line Bob Dobbs taught me is, when you're laughing, you're learning. And Joyce knew this. He could sneak it in. It's like, don't sell out, sneak in. He could sneak this stuff in, and that's why the Masons and the CIA created MK Ultra through reading the Wake. It's all like, hey, it's right there if you pay attention, and there's a lot deeper levels to everything Joyce is saying, but you can read on the surface or go deep sea diving. you know, and you really brought it out, because that is the essence of this whole salon, is to hear the wake read out loud and look at the words. So for anybody watching this on YouTube, you can hit the little button at the bottom and have, you know, the subtitles come up. Now that's like double duty interrobang with this thing we're living right now, is that the YouTube algorithm's gonna wakey-eyes wakey. The wakeys, the words that the wake created are going to be double waked by the way YouTube translates them. So I thank you for doing that. Okay, Talia, you're up.
Oh yeah. So you asked, are we hardwired for violence? And
Yes.
it made me think of Michel Rabate's analysis of book 3.3 in Sam and Luca Crispy's book, How Joyce Wrote Finnegans Wake, where so in 3.3 that it's the Inquisition, some say, of HCE, and HCE is to defend himself. He describes the cities he had built. It's HC, the builder. And what Michel Rabates says, I like it a lot. He says that this chapter in the Wake shows that all progress is built on exploitation. He says this is one of the messages of this book, on exploitation. And so I wonder, maybe human beings as social beings are hardwired, have like violence hardwired into them, but we don't know what human beings are like when they're not social beings, because we exist in a society, and society in a sense determines us, and society is violent, like Peter said about borders. Society sets borders, and borders are violent. So as social being, I think that yes, we are inherently violent.
Roy, you're up. Are we inherently violent?
Well, I think that, you know, there's a section in the Wake where he talks about the wrestlers in the womb, the restless in the womb. I mean, that when Cain and Abel were in the womb, that she could feel them fighting even before they were born. You know what? So yeah, I think there is, you know, there are always going to be born a certain number of people who kind of see life as a zero-sum game where you must obliterate the other person to validate yourself.
Dude, that's amazing you said that, because I was going to bring this up. Both McLuhan and Krishnamurti say violence is the human search for identity.
Yeah, I think it does have something to do with identity. I mean, you assert your identity by dominating somebody else. And that becomes
I don't like to say that line. I don't believe in it. I think
I don't believe in it. I'm
yeah, I know, but it's sort of like, it's sort of sad. But anybody else want to comment on, are we hardwired for violence? Because I want to jump into Catherine bringing up content there, and she actually is a professor, and she used the word McLuhan. That's a no, girl. You can't. It's like you get blackballed out of academia for saying that. But thank God. I mean,
I use the word McLuhan in my class.
I know. You got him in his book, and I mean, it's all good. It doesn't matter. But it is funny because, I picked the title of this salon as Wide Awake Language, which is sort of backwards, the context. I took it out of context, but then I added a dash and I said, I tell you no story. So when I say there's no content in the Wake, people go, that's bullshit. And I want to dedicate the salon to Eric Dugdale, this great historian here in Los Angeles who passed last year. And he was a great member of our Wake group for 20 years. And he would say, I'm very content to say there's no content in the Wake. Now that is a very Joycean play on words, but it is an amazing thing because Marx the four systems. We didn't get into the other ones, but Marx would say the point of the world is to change the world. And McLuhan would say, dude, you can't change diddly squat. Your inventions change you. But that's Marshall knew. Was it the book or the era or the environment that caused Joyce to write his book? Or was it Joyce himself? So Tyler brought up the word determinism. So they chalked McLuhan off as a technological determinist often. He isn't. He's a light technological determinist. He's a Manipian satirist who knows that the Civil War was caused by the telegraph and radio caused World War II. People are like, that's bullshit. It's like, no, Hitler used the radio and caused World War II. But he knows that our inventions change us. So that how much did inventing the book, the pen and the paper, printed matter empower what Joyce did, and how much did the era he lived in? So we're going to go right to Kurt Schwitter. You know, this artist, he's a Dada artist. Here's his line. I would love you to react. We'll start with you, Sam. Every period must redeem itself because it suffers in itself alone. How does that apply to the wake for you, Sam?
Oh.
Go.
I'm glad you're going first, Sam.
Thank you.
No, that's because, Sam, I have to tell you, when I asked this hotshot New York professor who studies the wake, who's the greatest Wakean alive? He goes, Sam Slote. I goes, all right, I want to interview him.
It was just me with a false mustache.
but you know what I'm saying, basically, Sam. I mean,
Joyce is writing in a period that was, and I'm following from Schwitter's in terms of, he was writing in a period that was very conscious of itself as a period, and Joyce was, let us say, hanging out, associating with people who are very much instrumental in fostering that idea, the idea of what we now call modernism. So it was a period very much aware of itself, also a period defined by the conflagration that was World War I, and that the wake was then in the unsettled period afterwards. But also Joyce was thinking very, very locally in terms of the establishment of the Irish Free State in 1922, 1923. And I'm always reluctant to use phrases like Finnegans Wake is about. And I'm about to use such a statement, but in a very, very limited sense. And it's certainly about much more than this. Finnegans Wake is a covert history of the Irish Free State, that the dates of composition of Finnegans Wake kind of parallel the Irish Free State. When Joyce is starting to write it in 22, 23, he's reading a lot of the Irish Times, and he's not so much taking down notes on their stories of the Irish Civil War. He's taking stories of what's happening around the Civil War, like just life in wartime in Dublin around that. And some of this stuff feeds into the wake. Then there are other parts of, like if you've got a weird interest in the politics of dairy production in the Irish Free State in the late 1920s, there are a few pages in Finnegans Wake that could really please you. And then as he's finishing Finnegans Wake and the Free State is evolving towards the Republic and finally severing ties with the final formal ties with the United Kingdom, that there's a lot of that infuses the soft morning city, the concluding pages of the wake. So there are elements of the wake that's around it. So it's conscious of this transformative period in Irish history, which is itself a response to and against centuries of a very contentious history, a redefinition of itself in ways that he doesn't necessarily support, but also in the context of a Europe that's careening towards a more devastating conflagration. I was thinking that when Peter was talking earlier, there's a tremendous melancholy in the last year of Joyce's life after the war starts, when he's in a French town, Saint-Geron-le-Puy, trying to escape France, trying to make sure his daughter Lucia is safe. And he finally gets to Zurich, but just dies 3 weeks later. But the last time he sees Lucy Léon, and the Léons were some of his closest friends in Paris. Paul Léon was, in effect, his secretary, business manager, a very, very, very close associate. His last time meeting Lucy Léon, it's in Saint-Jean. She's going to take the bus to Paris, and it's a terrible business, this war. Will it ever end? And he just sighs and goes, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Beautiful, Sam. And Roy, you're up because I want to suss this out and put in context of what we talk about a lot. Kurt Schwitter's quote suggests that each historical period has its own unique challenge and suffering. That's our next subject, suffering. And it's up to that period itself to find a way to overcome these difficulties and redeem itself. So when we had Reagan as a president, we had great hardcore punk like Jello Biafra and the Dead Kennedys. When we had Clinton as a president, we had wimpy new wave like Blondie and Talking Heads.
Hey, lay off.
Wait.
Those were great groups. Come on.
That's not Clinton. That's 80s.
Yeah. Well, anyways, you know what I'm saying, Roy. In fact, you know.
No, I don't. That's,
Oh, yeah, but you're where we apply. Finnegans Wake is reading a little rock lyrics out loud. That's what it's like, Louis. But I mean, this is
no
it
one can
more.
understand it, so it can't be saying anything subversive. Yeah.
That's it. Well, that's what I'm saying. Does each period must redeem itself because it suffers in itself alone? Any thoughts, Roy?
Oy vey. Well, I mean, you know, those labels like modernism and postmodernism, I mean, those are all after the fact. The people who were creating these works that were labeled, you know, as such, you know, they did not. I don't think they thought of themselves as being part of these periods. But you know, it's yeah. What there's a truism like going from Balzac to Flaubert is going from modernism to postmodernism or something. But I feel like, you know, Joyce, he absorbed somehow. I don't know. I mean, his powers of absorption of all aspects of literature were practically supernatural.
That's a good word. Supernatural. We haven't had that.
Yeah. Carlos Santana, supernatural. But I think. Well, I know Catherine was talking about processes, and I think he really was. He didn't want to be reified in terms of any of these labels of a certain historical period, but there was a certain fluidity where he felt this freedom to, you know, flow from one thing to another. You know, as David Bowie says, you know, like a demon from station to station.
Well, you know, Bowie's a Wakean too.
Well,
that was good, Bryce. No, he is. We know it. He went to a bookstore and bought the Wake. We know that. Okay.
Even if he never read the Wake, he'd be very Wakean.
No, he claimed he loved it and bought it as a gift. Okay, Talia, Peter, and then Catherine. Any comments on the Kurt Schwitter or whatever was said?
I like this quote from David Bowie's "Hello, Space Boy." This chaos is killing me, and I feel like this is how I feel always, like nowadays.
Okay. Great, Peter, go ahead.
Alone.
Yeah.
So last year there was that new movie, One Battle After Another.
Yeah.
Based on the Thomas Pynchon novel Vineland. So it's on HBO streaming now. So I just watched that movie the other day for like the fourth time. And I love the book, the Pynchon book. And what the story of that movie makes me think about and what the Pynchon novel makes me think about, and also this comes up in the Wake, is this idea of like, you know, when so many things are under siege, one of the best things we can try to do is like at least preserve culture, history, whatever, preserve something for the future, whether that's, well, it comes up in the Wake as a reference to like monks burying their books underground when the Vikings were like sieging and burning and destroying everything. I think, I could be wrong, and you guys probably know, but I think the Book of Kells was preserved like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, they had to bury their sacred books to protect them from the Viking incursions. Yeah.
And that's what Biddy the Hen is doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Really
Yeah. So I've been thinking about that stuff, and I brought up one battle after another and all that because it's like, you know, they're in the movie, he's trying to protect his daughter from the repercussions of the stuff that he did, but it's also about keeping her safe to prepare her for the next battle for her generation. I think, I don't know, that's just what I'm thinking about is like, we have to kind of preserve something so that the next chapter, the next people can have.
Oh,
there's in the Bible, there's the verse about, you know, a remnant shall remain.
I've got something very depressing to say
about.
You know what the most durable artifact of human civilization is or is going to be?
The most what artifact?
Durable artifact.
Durable.
Nuclear waste?
No. L. Ron Hubbard. The Scientologists have etched all his writings in titanium that are buried in some kind of vault deep in Arizona or in that neck of the woods. Apparently, it will survive when the sun goes red giant in 5 billion years and destroys the Earth.
Who's going to be left to read it, though?
Well, yeah, because there's a science fiction basis of the Thetans in Dianetics, so they'll pick it up.
L. Ron Hubbard said, you can make a good living writing science fiction, but if you really want to be rich, you could start your own religion.
Yeah. No, that was
frozen. Isn't he frozen someplace?
What?
Is it? L. Ron Hubbard. Isn't he like
Scientology?
Frozen? No, I know, but isn't his body frozen someplace?
Oh, yeah, and he's going to be revived when the technology arrives.
Sam, what is your source on the durability thing on Hubbard? Do you know?
It's something I read years ago, so I don't remember it offhand.
Anyways, so that was good, Peter. You brought up a lot there, and we're going to go to Catherine. Any comment on the Kurt Schwitter quote, Catherine?
Yes. So my first thought was I just disagree with Kurt Schwitter's. You know?
Yeah.
Like every age must redeem itself because it suffers only from itself. I think just isn't true. Like we don't exist just in this moment. Like what would that moment be? Right now, this minute, this year, this decade. We're constantly haunted by the past and our interpretations of the past, fragments of the past, and that we suffer from the past. You know, a lot of what we're trying to do is reprogram ourselves, you know, move away from nefarious forms of civilization that we've inherited. But then I thought, well, Kurt Schwitter is actually much more of a friend to us than it sounds like because of his collage aesthetic. This idea of gathering scraps and rubbish and putting them together in new ways that are redemptive. I mean, this is so Wakean. And so that kind of artistic practice, I think, goes against that, you know, that kind of programmatic statement. And it's something much more, it's a much more creative and restorative philosophy that does actually have an attitude to the past, but one that's about, you know, actively reshaping it and actively working through what has come down to us and in a non-glorifying way. You know, it's not like, you know, make that past great again. It's rework it in a context, in a collage where there is a kind of plurality and where there is an openness.
Yeah, Catherine, you got what McLuhan called complex clairvoyance, CC, and Zappa called it conceptual continuity. So you got this good thread going through my outline, like how I can jump from one topic to the next, because what you just touched on there was called all at onceness. All times are happening now. It's the same thing Frank Zappa said and same thing James Joyce said. And that's why Zappa put him as an influence in his first album, listed Joyce. But the thing is that the McLuhan got from the Wake was mosaic writing. And that's effects precede causes, how Surratt taught us how to watch TV because he invented pointillism. And then we learned how to watch TV, which is mosaic, called electronic pointillism. It was already there. It's effects precede causes. But before we go into that, we didn't really go into the word content because most of you here probably would not agree with me. There's no content in the Wake because you make your living talking about the content in the Wake.
And we make our living talking about lack of content in the Wake.
Well, too much content.
Yeah, it's an overabundance of content.
It's an overabundance, but yeah, it cancels its own stuff out. But people roll their eyes when I say there's no content in the Wake. And then the great Sherry from the Austin group, after several meetings, she goes, Jerry, aren't you going to tell us there's no content in the Wake? But I do want to revert to, Roy and I go to the New York Wake, and what's his name? Stanley Applebaum's been reading the work. I wonder, Sam, who's the person on earth who's been reading the Wake the longest, who's still living. I
thought it was you.
I'm not that old, but these guys are 95, 100 years old. But Stanley's about 95. I've interviewed him, and he's been reading the Wake for about 60, 70 years. And every New York Wake meeting, he'll go, it's all about the sound. And they're all like, this word means
and language.
In language in the sound. So this is if there's no content. I mean, Joyce is admitting it. I tell no story. And we're going to ask you the difference between storytelling and narrative. But somebody brought up Flaubert there for a second. And he wrote a book about nothing. In a letter to his mistress in 1852, Flaubert articulated his desire to write a book about nothing, a book dependent on nothing external, which would be held together by the internal strength of its own style. So I think style is a huge word there. And in what did Joyce invent with the Wake was a style, and it's like my little formula that I ask you all to do. James Joyce invented blank and disguised it as a book. And that is like the new one is James Joyce invented the YouTube thumbnail and disguised it as a book. That's what most people are all about, is being clickbait into which YouTube video to watch by the thumbnail. That's what it's all about. And that's what Joyce, the other one I love is, so I asked someone, could you find this product? That's a bike light for a bicycle. And I says, could you find this? And they go, yeah, you take your cell phone and you have this app called reverse image search. And I says, that's what Joyce invented with Finnegans Wake, reverse image search. So we can go back in time, like Catherine says, we can go back Sam, when you said, what is Finnegans Wake about? I say it's about everything that ever happened and will happen. That's why it transcends time and space. So, Catherine, I'm curious your thoughts on saying the Wake has no content, because you talked about the sound of it earlier.
I mean, I would say it has too much content to deliver any specific content. That's how I would put it,
That's good.
Yeah. It's like overstuffed, that suitcase.
Yeah. Information overload.
Yeah.
Yeah. And super.
Well, I once told someone, oh, have you ever read this book? It's unreadable. And she goes, what's the point? And my teacher told me you should have said it satirizes the information overload that we live in and we swirl in. It's Edgar Allan Poe's Descent into the Maelstrom. Okay, Peter, no content in the Wake. Any comment?
I think part of what it does is it really fucks with your ability to identify content, such as like, capitalizing words that are the first letter of a word that's not usually capitalized, or using proper nouns without capitalizing things.
Yeah.
So it's like what I've noticed is, I've been reading Finnegans Wake for, I don't know, maybe 12 years or something like that, and the beginning of my reading of it, I would read the text, and I would just, so much of it I just could not connect to a reference of something. This is like before looking at Fleet and all that.
Yeah.
But now that I've been reading it for years, and now that I've actually been to Ireland, like I recognize place names and things like that I did not recognize years and years ago. So I'm just saying, like, yes, it is information overload, but also he's making it so that you could go through it and not really care about the content and still have some kind of good experience with the sound and the strangeness. But if you want to look for content, you could go down a rabbit hole with every word, every sentence, and have information overload. So it's kind of both for me.
Yeah, it's good. And we're going to have Talia, Roy, and then Sam comment on the content. But it's interesting what you said, because what the Sweeney's reading group does every Tuesday, I go. It's amazing, because these people are coming to Sweeney's Pharmacy because it's like a literary tourist trap. And they're going to buy some lemon soap because Joyce mentions it in his book. So they're kind of literary, kind of touristy people. And they walk in, and PJ and his crew shove them a book in front of their face and go, "Here, you want to read the Joyce book with us out loud worldwide?" And they're like, "Sure." They aren't going to a Finnegans Wake reading club on purpose. So they usually go like this. And sometimes the readings are amazing. They read it really well. And they go, "Well, how'd that make you? What did you think of that?" They'll go, "It was like music." So they immediately put it in the sonic realm. And that's an interesting observation, I think, to understand that if you're not going to read it intentionally, you get they sneak you into reading the Wake. My favorite, I've collected these stories for years, and my favorite is this great artist in New York. His friend would walk down the street in New York City, read a page of the Wake, tear it out of the book, and throw it into the street. So there's no indication on each page where that's from or what. There's no thing that says Finnegans Wake by James Joyce. To me, that's the epitome of the Wake, is that you don't know what the source. As soon as you know the source, then you're screwed. Okay, Talia, any thoughts on no content in the Wake?
Yeah. So there's this scene from 12 Monkeys.
You mean the
film?
No, the film that was made by Terry Gilliam. No, Terry Gilliam on
Terry Gilliam.
Chris Marker's. It was based
on Le Jeté.
It's based on Le Jeté. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but so this quote, I think it's on 12 Monkeys. I don't think it's on Le Jeté. Is about this woman whose name I can't remember. She tells Bruce Willis how every time we encounter an artwork, it changes because we change. So we change, and then it changes with us. So if Finnegans Wake has multiple plots or numerous plots, and each plot changes with us as we change, as we develop or regress or whatever. So there's so all the plots continually change, not just one. So Finnegans Wake takes it to the extreme, not just because this one plot changes, but because it has so many.
It's really good. It's back to what Catherine was saying earlier, just bringing up content. McLuhan mid-career. So he wrote 22 books from 1940 to 1980. Mid-career, his big catch line, the medium is the massage or the medium is the message, he updated to the user is the content. He goes, nope, it's no longer medium is the massage. No, but nobody even knows that. The user is the content in all art. It doesn't matter what the artist intended or what they did. The user can do anything they want with it. The other favorite story is one of the greatest experimental filmmakers in America, Phil Solomon, used to be a projectionist in Boston, and he would read the wake between changing reels on the projector film, and he would take the book and read a little, and he'd get so mad he'd throw the book against the wall. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Roy, you're up. Any comments on no content?
Well, it reminded me a bit. You were talking about the guy who ripped off the pages of Finnegans Wake. I remember seeing a video of Salvador Dali where he was ripping off pages of the book and then stuffing them into his mouth until his mouth was full of these
Nice.
this paper. It seemed like some kind of comment on modern society. I'm not sure what it was, but also, there is a something that Stephen Dedalus refers to. I'm not exactly sure, but it's a Latin phrase that the world changes and we change with it. And that seemed like a kind of unsettling but probably true statement about history.
Really good, right? Because that's Salvador Dali. And Peter has a great essay on Dali in the Wake. But Dali says, "I don't take LSD. I am LSD."
That's what Lenin said. He said, "I don't have to. I was born tripping. I don't take LSD."
But McLuhan was crossing the border once, and the customs officer says, "Okay, where is it?" And he goes, "Where's what?" He says, "The LSD." And he says, "I don't have any LSD." He says, "Well, you're a friend of Tim Leary's." And he says, "No, I don't take LSD, but my friends who read Finnegans Wake out loud say it's just like taking LSD." And it's true. Okay, that's why.
In a TV interview, he said that LSD is the poor man's Finnegans Wake.
Yeah. And that's why
he said that.
No, McLuhan said that, right?
McLuhan said that the poor man's Finnegans.
Because that's why the great thing is kids go to Burning Man and they read Terence McKenna and they get into the Wake, and it's like, hey, we'll take it, we'll accept you any way you can sneak in. Okay, Sam, any word on no content in the Wake?
Well, so one of the sort of standard things you see in a lot of reading groups.
Oh, whoops, he froze.
Stuck.
He'll come back. This is the beauty of Zoom. Okay, so you cut out for a second, so just repeat what you just said.
I can't remember what I was thinking like 2 seconds.
It's like reading groups, people will start laughing at a line and then go, "I have no idea what this means, but this is funny."
Yeah.
And when he was writing the Wake, at one point there was a letter where Joyce is saying that he's.
You're freezing.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing. This is total Wakey, and this.
I'm dropping out, man.
No, now we can hear you.
Now we can hear you.
No, we can't hear you.
Okay.
It's so
but
dramatic.
here's the
I want to shut off the video for a sec. That might help.
So you could shut off your camera and try that. If
it's like ground control to Major Tom.
Yeah, but it is what it is the medium is the message, and it's like we can't stand if no one's talking.
Oh
my God. And if we all said, okay, go ahead, Sam.
My Wi-Fi was being a little bit dodgy. That he set up a nice little mahjong puzzle, and the idea of sort of arranging different tiles and patterns together. And I think that's an interesting entry point into understanding how Joyce marshals this superabundance of content. That he takes disparate stories that aligns them on superficial similarities, or in some cases a bit more substantial. Like there's this one part of the Wake, where with the Burrus and Cassius. So he tells the story of Julius Caesar with Brutus and Cassius, but it's also a story about breakfast with butter and cheese. So multiple things happening together, and you can focus on the one, you can focus on the other, but it's a way of telling the one story through a different story.
Yeah. It's really good. I did want to touch on suffering for a second, because everybody in my group always says, "Oh, Dylan and Buddha says suffering's the human condition." And, Carl Jung says you grow more through suffering. I'm like, bullshit. I think life is a happy occasion, and we should accent the joy and positiveness. And that's William Blake. We become what we behold. But here's
what Miles Davis said. I don't suffer, man.
Right.
I play the blues. I've never suffered.
Well, Miles Davis did. White cops beat him up for standing in front of the bar.
He said in his music, incident did not.
It's a beautiful comment, Roy, because he had to express his joy through his music.
Yeah,
but here's Tom Waits. I like beautiful melodies telling me terrible things. The world is a hellish place, and bad writing is destroying the quality of our suffering. It's like, what? There's no quality to suffering. Suffering's just bad. And it's like he's trying to make, a punny remark.
But I know what it means. Like I don't mind if movies show me horrible things. I really hate it when actors are phony, and it doesn't have anything to do with reality. I'd rather see real suffering than phony depictions of reality.
Right. But the most Wakian, one of the most Wakian filmmakers is Jean-Luc Godard, and he says Hollywood movies are just documentaries of actors acting. that is totally the Wake. That's Manipian satire.
Not all of them.
Not all. So let's go with this storytelling and narrative. This guy who worked for Bob Dylan, I interviewed him, said there's a difference between narrative and storytelling. And I'm curious if anyone wants to contribute to say, we'll start with you, Sam. Is there a difference between narrative and storytelling, and what is it?
It's also, the difference between plot and narrative. In a sense, plot is what happens. Narrative is how you're told what happens. Perhaps one way of, one way of illustrating that is like the two different cuts of the Sergio Leone film, Once Upon a Time in America, where when it was released in America, the studio just didn't like it. And so it was edited to be in chronological sequence. And it sucks in chronological sequence.
Wow.
It's transcendent in the order he films it in, where it just, because you have the sort of the dream-like interventions and interpositions of the past and the present, and how they're contaminating each other. And it's magical is maybe not quite the right word, because it's a brutal and cruel film, but it's a good manifest example of how narrative is not story.
Narrative is not story. Yeah. Okay. Roy, you're up. Difference between narrative and story.
Well,
tell us.
Actually, I teach Battle Royal a lot by Ralph Ellison, and I teach the unreliable narrator, where and it's not necessarily misrepresenting what actually happens in the narrative, but it's the attitude towards what's happening in the narrative, and how that differs from the attitude of the author. So it is it demands a kind of sophisticated sense of irony, where what somebody explicitly says is not what they're really saying. And I feel like that's the difference between narrative and storytelling.
Thank you. Talia, you're up.
I think that storytelling involves self-awareness, that there's an awareness or like recognition that the story is being told, while narrative can infiltrate anything, and we can even transmit a certain narrative without realizing it. So maybe it's the question of intention, or that storytelling is intention, but narrative can exist like without it.
Really good. Thank you, Peter, and then Catherine.
I don't really have an answer for this one. I mean, I like the answers I'm hearing. I don't really have one myself.
No worries. Go ahead. Go ahead, Catherine.
I suppose I would have a simple, maybe too simple answer that narrative is the construction of the fiction, like the elements and the order they come in, the kind of equation, the chemical formula. And that storytelling is the embodied kind of human act of transmitting that with all of the extra things like the gesticulations, the hand movements, tone of voice, the address to the audience, the relationship with the audience, that it's much more about the activity, the embodied craft. And I suppose that if you're looking at a printed work, it's about the style, the kind of the rhythm of the language, the texture, all of that. And that, as opposed to narrative, which is something extractable, according to like the causal chain of events that is supposedly at the center of narrative. Like narrative isn't just a random sequence of things. It's this one thing happened, which caused the next thing to happen, which then led to that thing, and a reverse effect, and so on. So there's a kind of structure. Narrative is really about a causal, sequential structure. And storytelling could be full of digressions and references and comments and interruptions, and it's a much more kind of human activity.
So anyways, Catherine, I'll stay on you. The Dylan associate said he learned from someone, not that it's true or not, he said, narrative doesn't lie. What do you think of that?
Who said that?
A guy who worked with Dylan.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who. It's just this thought that because we're leading to go ahead, Catherine, your thought. The narrative doesn't lie. Agree or disagree?
Could this be that in a way there's truth in everything, even in fiction, or particularly in fiction, there's some kind of human truth there, even if it's a fabrication, it speaks, it expresses something that is meaningful for us.
Well,
go ahead.
Fiction is an interesting problem in analytic philosophy because it's sort of how do we deal with fiction, and you get a lot of weird, crazy statements about it. One of them is that works of fiction cannot lie because there is no pretense to truth, which in some cases it sort of takes some. I've seen some sort of silly extremes on this one, but it is a nice point that by definition the concept of lie does not apply to a work of fiction.
Okay, we'll start with you, Sam. Two things. Faulkner said sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. And Louis Buñuel said, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. So the round robin question is pretty simple. Is Finnegans Wake true? You're up, Sam.
Does God exist?
Lord, I hope not.
No, you hope. Now, are you answering Roy's question or my
No.
question?
Is Finnegans Wake true? Lord, I hope not.
You hope not. Okay, Roy.
But it's also like the idea of like the quest for the move towards like something that's sort of unreachable. Because the Faulkner line, I mean, it goes all the way back to Aristotle and the difference between poetry and history. In history, and that's just the shit that happened. Poetry is about what could have happened. The sort of the more and in a sense how poetry, precisely by dealing with fiction, deals with truer things because it can dispense with the fact, it can dispense with the petty actualities that sort of happen. I'm trivializing the Aristotelian argument quite a bit, but it is an interesting sort of trying to resolve the tension between poetics and history. But is Finnegans Wake true? It deals with too many truths to be true.
Wow. Because what you described, Sam, I love, was what McLuhan called the resonating interval. It's the in-betweenness. It's the gap is where the action is. So, Roy, is Finnegans Wake true?
Well, Well, there's a one sentence in Finnegans Wake, putting truth and untruth together, we may have a shot at seeing what this hybrid really was like to look at. So I don't think we can say that Finnegans Wake is true or untrue, but it's a hybrid of fiction and reality.
Dude, that's a cop out.
I'm just talking about.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah, but I want to say something about narrative doesn't lie.
Okay.
I think,
please, yeah.
Obviously, narrative can lie, because I think the whole battle in propaganda is who controls the narrative, and we have been seeing how narratives can lie. On a day-to-day basis these days.
Yeah. But it's interesting to analyze what words mean and what we think they mean and how people can change them. Because, anyways, that was really good, both of you guys. I appreciate that. Okay, Talia, is Finnegans Wake true?
Sometimes.
That's a good answer. Okay, Peter.
Yeah, I'll say yes, just in the sense of it's Joyce's attempt to tell a history of the world using fairy tales and all these different references to mythology and all these different things mixed together, mixing all these languages together. But something, you brought up earlier, these like 4 things of what socialism, communism, fascism, and something. Yeah, and so the cycles in the wake in that regard, he keeps going back to Vico, where it goes, human society goes from monarchy to aristocracy to democracy, then to chaos, then cycling back. And I don't know, I think that cycle is true, and Joyce is kind of using that as a structure and a trellis.
So are we going back to aristocracy now? Or monarchy?
Monarchy.
No kings. Come on, man.
Yeah.
March 28th. Okay. Very good, Peter. And Catherine, you're up. Is Finnegans Wake true?
Because we're kind of over time, I would say briefly, echoing Bloom in the Cersei episode, Ness, yo.
No, we're not over time. We go 2 hours. But if anybody has to leave, that's fine. And I wanted to leave some time where people could bring up their own. I have 2 more topics to bring up, but I wanted at this point, if anyone else had a round robin question or any subject they wanted to bring up, we could entertain that. Sorry to hog it. Anyways.
I have 2 really.
Go ahead, Peter.
Just 2 things that are barely even related to what we're talking about, but I'll just mention them. So one thing you were asking about this whole thing of true and fiction and all that. I'm thinking about Herman Melville, who in his early career, he wrote Typee and Omu, which were these like slightly fictionalized versions of his own experiences on a whaling ship. And they were successful books, but critics didn't think they were real. And they were constantly like, that's definitely fiction. He definitely didn't really do that, even though most of it is real. And then so Melville said, all right, well, fine, I'll get creative. I'll give you some fiction. And he wrote Moby Dick and Pierre and all these things. And critics just hated it. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, and this is really obscure, but I have Joyce scholars here. So I'd be curious if anybody has any thoughts on this, just because, with the news here in the United States lately and what's going on in Minnesota and these, killings and executions and all that. I've been thinking about this figure that Joyce was friends with in college named Francis Skeffington, who was like unjustly executed by the British military in the Easter Rising. And I think Joyce was like pretty impacted by that. So I'm just curious if anybody has any thoughts or information about Joyce and that guy Francis Skeffington.
Yeah, they when they were in college together, they both wrote pieces that were rejected by their university, the sort of the student publication, for different reasons. Joyce's was The Day of the Rabblement, because he mentions Bruno, who's on the Vatican's list of prohibited books. So that was enough for that. and Skeffington's piece was on that women should be admitted to universities. And so they teamed up together and had them privately published, about 80 copies of them. And there's an interesting sort of note that editorial note that they're both neither endorses the other's essay. That they agreed to have them published together, but they don't agree with each other's views. So they were friends, but they weren't the closest of friends. And certainly Joyce was, upset. And when Skeffington married, he took his wife's name, and so he's known as Sheehy Skeffington. I think her name was Frances, and Joyce also had a crush on her before Frances Skeffington married her. So there was also rivalry, might be a slight exaggeration, but that was also a component of their relationship. My son's back home and turning on the loud music, so I should close the door.
Anyways, that was really good, Peter. But did you have anybody else want to weigh in on the Melville? Was there a question about Melville? Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say something. When you said ungraspable, Peter, were you thinking of the ungraspable phantom of life that Melville talks about? That's one of my favorite lines in Moby Dick.
Wow. When I said ungraspable, I was thinking of like the river and how, you can't hold on to a flowing river.
No.
Anybody, Catherine, did you want to bring up a question or a comment?
I was going to say, well, I could ask a question. I was going to say, in answer to the question about Skeffington, that he referred to Joyce as, Joyce referred to him as Hairy Jesus. Because he didn't shave his huge beard, and because he was a vegetarian and he was pro-peace, pro-equal rights for men and women. And so it's kind of...
They have me put my bed sheets on the...
Oh, sorry.
Life
Did he refer to himself as the womanly man? I always think or not the womanly man, but Bloom is referred to as the new womanly man. But Skeffington, I think Joyce refers to him something about the blending of the sexes, or kind of androgynous.
Yeah. And this equality. I mean, it's an interesting point to bring up with Finnegans Wake, and maybe this is a question to do with binary opposition. So if we can say like, oh, it's so full of content, there is no transmissible content, everything has to be created by the reader or by readers together or something. What do you think of the binaries that Finnegans Wake sets up? HCE, ALP, or like say just to do with gender, jumping off from Skeffington and his ideas of equality. Do you think that there is, is Finnegans Wake a more female book, in the sense of undoing values traditionally associated with men, strength, coherence, tenacity, and replacing with other virtues like mobility, variation, recuperation, say fertility, generativity. Are these? It seems kind of lame in a way to deal with these binaries. What are your thoughts about that?
I'll try, Catherine. I love that question because McLuhan was asked, "Will there ever be silence?" He says, "Things don't exist on their own; they only exist in relationship." Because we came out of the womb, unless you watch the Fellini movie Satyricon, the first human was like both sexes, and so we came out and we've generally known as there's males and there's females. And then Joyce writes this ending to Ulysses, which is, one of the sexiest soliloquies you'll ever see. I have women read it every year at Bloomsday and everybody creams their jeans. It's an amazing piece of writing. And people are like, how does this man write so well for women? Well, then what does the Wake do? It turns the whole female protagonist into a water and goes into the ocean, which is, nurturing, water. So I think it is an amazing fact. It's like why Tom Robbins appealed to all young women with skinny legs and all. You know, he was a total Wakean, a deadhead stoner, and he was into McLuhan, and he read from Joyce every night. He read from Finnegans Wake every night. So I think Joyce was able to tap in to what being, not what being a female is, but what it is by watching his daughter dance around like Martha Graham. You know, it's like she wasn't, he could say, oh, I wanted to go into, was Joyce miserable in suffering for those 17 years? And I was like, oh, he had eye disease. No, he was getting paid to go to eat at fancy restaurants, paid to write this gobbledygook that changed the world forever, and watch it. It's Martha Graham. Great artists aren't ahead of their times. They are their times. And if all times are happening now, that's what Joyce captivated, that matriarchy should be the way we're living today. He set out a manual of that the woman is the nurturing. I mean, I have it personally. My mother named me after the patron saint of mothers,
Can you take off my
Saint
shirt?
Bernard. And,
Actually,
I ended up working for the Mothers Convention. So I have it in my blood that women are the saviors of the world.
This is going on
So
YouTube.
Joyce, that why wouldn't I read Finnegans Wake for 30 years? It's
More stuff in
one word,
This is the
Mama
best apart
Fest.
from that concert since you don't.
It's Joyce's manifesto has the word mama in it. That's mother. Mother feeds. Feast is festa. Mama Fista is that woman is the nurturing force, and we have to, embrace it. In other words, question authority, but not your mother.
In terms of Catherine's question about sort of the binaries in the wake, I mean, one way of maybe trying to answer that would be through the influence of Bruno and the coincidentia oppositorum. A lot of binaries are set up to be, as it were, deconstructed. In terms of gender, there's a lot of gender fluidity within Finnegans Wake. Just the Mamalujo passage in 2:4, they're called the four old he ladies, and there are other ways in which that happens. In terms of characters, there's a line of a who's who of when everybody's somebody else. That all the sort of stable character identities that one might assume within the Wake are all kind of merged. And even one of the biggest dialectics within the Wake, Shem and Sean, they kind of interpose again and across each other. So yeah, you have these binaries, but they're far from absolute.
Yeah. Really good, Sam. Go ahead, Roy.
Well, I think of the conflict between Thanatos and Eros that Freud says this is like an eternal conflict in human psychology. The instinct towards life and the instinct towards death, and I'm not sure what to say more about that, but I think Joyce was aware of that dialectic, and he tried to turn it into humor, which I think he was very successful at doing.
It's like what Roy brought up is life and death. Dark and Leonard Cohen. You can't have light without a crack or darkness. So this binary.
No, he said that the crack is where the light comes through.
We have to have these.
That's a great line.
Yeah, we have to have these binaries in order to understand things. It's the relationship of the binaries. So Talia and then Peter on this topic Catherine brought up.
Oh yeah, so it's very interesting. There's this line in ALP's monologue, like one page, like before the end of the book, that she says, "Is there anyone who understands me?" And I always felt like it was also the book speaking, but through her. And that in this line, there's this very strong identification between AOP and the book, like not being understood. How it's like it is a feminine thing, I think. So at least in that line, I think it's extremely Finnegan's Wake is expressed as extremely feminine.
I like that answer, because I mean, I think that I've always loved the idea of opposites meeting and this undoing of binaries. I think it's so smart. But I just wonder if if this kind of feminine presence in Finnegan's Wake is never really undone by, or does it like meet the masculine principle? I'm not really sure that it does. It seems to take precedence. And I mean, are these truly masculine and feminine? Are they constructs? Yes. And they're styles, that both men and women can occupy or follow. But I'm really with you, Talia, that, this is a book that aligns itself with a particular way of being that it repeatedly identifies as female or feminine. And it's, and this is kind of, I don't know. I mean, I think the answer there must be an answer in the terms that Sam presented of the coincidentia oppositorum. But it's like, it just seems to kind of have this long life, this kind of gender position in the text. Yeah. Peter, what do you think?
So years ago, I did a presentation at a Joyce conference on Finnegans Wake and the I Ching, and the title was Binaries and Bibliomancy. And I was talking about how the same way the I Ching kind of starts with the opposites of yin and yang, Finnegans Wake also has those binary opposites, but everything builds up in gradations. Like nothing is completely one or the other. So like in the I Ching, it's these 64 hexagrams, and the hexagrams are lines that each line represents yin and yang. And so it's not like something is entirely yin or entirely yang. It's a combination and like an interplay. And also in I Ching, like everything is kind of moving. It's not just one solid thing. Same with the Wake. And just like Sam was saying, for example, with Shem and Sean, they have the sigla in the Wake, right? And Shem, even though he's more of I guess a feminine type of figure, his sigla is from the father's side. And Sean, even though he's more masculine, his sigla is from the mother's side. Other thing is, I feel like I end up bringing this up in these discussions a lot, is Leonard Schlane's book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess, where it's kind of like an anthropological study where Leonard Schlane argues that before the written alphabet, there was much less like misogyny, and societies were more matriarchal or more, what's the word, egalitarian. But then once the printed alphabet and the printed word takes over, somehow that it's almost like it's more of a masculine thing to say this word has this one meaning and this one reference. And actually in that book, Leonard Schlane talks about the Wake, where Joyce is he's just attacking language as being like words signifying one thing. It's just opening everything up, making everything much more fluid. And he argues that that's a more feminine thing.
We know what Robert Plant says is, sometimes words have two meanings.
Well, Catherine, it was a great topic because what Peter was touching on there is Rebecca Solnit inventing the word mansplaining. I mean, dude, that's like, isn't the Joycean world a bunch of mansplaining in a lot of ways? So,
or deconstruction of mansplaining.
Yeah, but there's a woman I want to talk to you about, Catherine. Her name is Mary Jane Schultz, and she was my mentor, and she turned McLuhan, Mailer, Ivan Illich, and Bucky Fuller onto feminism, and they were all hardcore. This was just when feminism was becoming a movement. in those words. And she invented a word called splitteracy. And she said, we split the right and left hemispheres when we invented printed word. Pre-printed word, spoken word, it was more fluid in the corpus callosum, that, it was easier to go from the right and left hemispheres. Whether you believe right and left hemispheres thing, it's just like masculine.
What is the name of that book?
She didn't write. Well, she doesn't have a book. The term she invented is
what's her name?
Mary Jane Schultz. It's called splitteracy. It's not. There's not much on her on the internet. But anyways, this is what I wanted to take over to continue with Catherine's binary. Is what Decio, the scholar from Brazil who comes to all our group, he says that the eye in the wake is space and the ear is time. Mm-hmm. And that's like the eye is semantics, which is meaning. The ear is sound, which is sonority, which is sonic information. And so I was curious, splitting the binary, the binary idea. What do you think of the eye in the ear split in the wake, the eye being space and the ear being time?
Well, what Joyce says is that what the eye brings is nothing, but that's what he said when he was going blind.
Yeah.
Well, that's Frank Zappa saying nothing is what I want. So go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, I mean, it's very appealing, the space-time split. I suppose, as readers of the Wake, we have to pay attention to Joyce's passage on time and space, and his kind of undermining of that opposition, that like in a kind of Bergsonian sense, that that time, this increasing desire in modern society to spatialize time, to divide it into, similar units that are consecutive, whereas instead time is very plastic, very experiential. And I wonder if, that we do see and hear perhaps separately, but I think that, because of the presence of puns in words, like words are often homonyms in Finnegans Wake, where the spelling is the same, but there are two words that, can be expressed through that spelling. There are visual puns as well as sonic puns. And so the eye, like the space of the visual, is as polyglossic or as, multidimensional as the space of sound, even though that, orality is usually a place where all kinds of things get unlocked, like we were saying earlier, when someone else reads the text, we're always hearing things we had never noticed before. But I think that if we can really stay with the page, we see multiple things as well. This isn't a very exciting answer, though, because I'm just kind of undoing the binary.
No, it needs to be undone. Here's what Dante wanted to eliminate time and space, so we would go to paradise. That you got to go beyond time and space, and Dante plays a big part. And then the people, the Incas, regard time and space as one concept called Pancha, P-A-C-H-A, and it's the it's all quantum physics. That's what Joyce was anticipating and inventing was quantum entanglement and retrocausality, which we didn't get into at all, which is called effects precede causes. So everything. When a lot of Joyce scholars don't like when I bring up, Joyce was predictive of the future. And it's like, no, it's retrocausality. He said the effects precede the causes. And that's, Niels Bohr said the opposite of a correct statement is a false statement. But the opposite of a profound truth may be another profound truth. Yeah. So, it is like a DNA strand or a snake eating its tail, the binary idea. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Mm.
And, like, I love that idea of bringing up Dante, like at the end of Paradiso, when Dante encounters God, it's the squaring of the circle. Like, it's this geometric impossibility, but it is, this kind of Platonic form that is true for all time, like that is just unchanging, essential. And Joyce has a version of that in the Night Lessons episode, but of
And
course he overlays it with, gynecological
Mm.
symbols and sex and just, all kinds of symbols get like overlarded on top of it. So I don't think we can, again, it's like we're coming back to the beginning, there's no essential truths here. That sounds like an essential truth.
Yeah, no, I
in the Wake, he definitely talks about the squaring of the circle. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
and it is the essential truth is that most people our age don't believe in God. They're like, nope, I don't believe in God. And so they ask Harold Bloom, who put the Wake way up on his game. He says the Wake's important. Whether you like Harold Bloom or not, he's a pretty good lit crit guy, and he
Pretty
loved
good.
the Wake. And they asked him, do you believe in God? And he goes, no, my attitude towards Yahweh is that I don't like him and I don't trust him and I wish he would go away, but I know he won't because he's built into the language. As Nietzsche said, he's part of the way we think. As soon as you use a verb involving being, you're in trouble. Go ahead, Peter.
It just reminds me, it's exactly this same thing that there's a quote from Joseph Campbell. It's very similar where somebody's asking about the belief in God. And he says, the word God is a metaphor for that which transcends all human categories of thought, including the categories of being and non-being.
Yeah.
So like, these are our categories.
Well, John Lennon was more profound. God is a concept for which God is a concept for which we measure our pain. Yeah.
Our pain. And John Lennon in the $100 Beatles book says, when I read Finnegans Wake, it felt like I was talking to a friend.
Yeah. Well,
Then the guy who shot John Lennon had a copy of
Catcher in the Rye.
in his back pocket.
Catcher in the Rye.
And Holden Caulfield says the exact same thing in Catcher in the Rye. He says, when I'm reading a book, it feels like I'm talking with a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So this has truly been nice of you all to become my friends, because I'll end with this. I mean, I am lucky to have friends like you to sit here for 2 hours and give me a seminar in how to live better. Because this is Charles Baudelaire. If you try to make a statement long, deep, and rich, it will age very fast. If you try to own the day you're talking, it will last forever. So, I'm going to hit the end broadcast button soon. I will ask everyone to, close out with any comments, but I want to thank you, because I think the beauty of it is we were doing what Joyce's nemesis said, Wyndham Lewis. Artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. I felt you were all here 100% for 2 hours, and I really appreciate your time and energy. It's been amazing. So we'll just start with Sam and go around. Sam, you have any closing comments?
No, not really. After 2 hours, I think I've said enough.
Well, it's really been good having you. Go ahead, Roy.
Live long and prosper.
Talia.
Yes. My favorite line is from the end of One Fall. It was life, but was it fair? And the answer is no.
Yeah. Thank you. And Peter.
I'll just say thanks, everyone. It's been an honor to be on a panel with you all. It's been great. Thank you.
And Catherine.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you it was just lovely to be part of this conversation.
Well, we do it every year, and I hope you all return next year. And in closing, let us pry. This is page 108 of the Wake, one line. On any page that its author was always constitutionally incapable of misappropriating the spoken word of others. Thank you so much for your time and energy. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever. Thank you.
Never ending the
Thank
journey.
you so much,
Bye.
everybody.
Take care.
As Lord Buckley says, dig infinity.